Hello, team. Here we are, episode 2 of the Australia New Zealand Music Podcast. Yeah, I am here today with a friend of mine, Lockie. How we doing, brother?
Reuben, I'm good. Long time fan of the show, first time caller. Thanks for having me on.
Well, you're beating everyone to ears on. We're recording this in November 2024. It probably won't be live until early 2025, but
I got a good
nonetheless, here
feeling.
you are. Yeah, I got a good feeling. Great. Let me just give the listeners a bit of a background about you, my friend. So Lockie is a guitarist songwriter living in Melbourne. He's been in and out of bands performing throughout Melbourne since 2012. Most notably, he's the guitarist for alt rock outfit the Calibans. Am I saying that right? The
That's it.
Calibans?
Yep, the Caliban.
Yeah. And he also plays bass for the blues hard rock group, the Dead Amigos, which I have a lovely vinyl sitting in my kitchen. It's the backdrop for my fruit bowl.
Excellent.
Actually.
That's
It's
a prime
nice.
position there.
Yeah, exactly. That's where they want to be. They also were recently off a UK tour in 2023. That was coming after that album release, that vinyl release, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's last year, and then off the back of that, headed over to the
Nice.
UK for about a month of touring. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And in terms of music business affairs, Lockie worked for Sony Music in A&R and promotions from 2020 until early 2022, right in the thick of it with COVID. Delicious. And then he made a move to promotions at Melbourne radio station Gold 104.3 in 2022, and he's still there today. So here he is in the radio game. And what I like to ask my guests, Lockie, is just one personal, silly, fun fact, just to get us going.
Silly fun fact. I mean, not so silly, but obviously no more guitar bass work, but like the first instrument I started on was the alto saxophone. So I was playing the wacky sax back in the day.
The wacky sax. How old were you?
When did I start? I was 11 years old when I started that.
Damn,
Yeah, so
that
it's
was your
great
first
fun.
instrument you picked up?
Yeah, it's a bit of an unorthodox one. I think at the time I remember everyone was picking up the guitar and, I just decided I had to do something different. But then years later, here I am doing guitar. So it's a full circle
resonate
moment.
with that. Yeah, I'm a different chaser too, my friend.
Yeah.
Nice. You came full circle then.
Yeah, it was, I think definitely when you get into high school and then music becomes such, a bigger part of your life and friends sharing different bands and different artists, and then you're like, this is what I want to do now. So the guitar just seemed to be the logical next choice, I think.
Nice. Cool. Good work. So what we sort of look into first is a piece of news to digest together. I'm just going to recount an article that I've recently read, and then we'll talk some more about the finer details.
Absolutely.
How does that sound?
Sounds good to me.
So this one's from YouGov, and it's entitled "Surfing the Airwaves: What Do Australians Think About Radio?" It's from Shinmin Bali. Sorry if I said that wrong. And it was released in March 2024, so it's a little bit old, but the stats should still resonate to a degree. So there's a dude called Ford Ennals. He's the CEO of the Australian industry body Commercial Radio and Audio, the CRA. You probably know all about this, my friend. Ford commented that radio's vibrant future will be driven by innovation and stimulated by Australia's passion for podcasts and people streaming their favourite radio show. The CRA says commercial audio and radio contribute $1 billion to the national GDP, which sounds significant, but when I compared it to the total GDP of $2.58 trillion in 2023, it felt less significant. Nonetheless, radio is still a player in our industry and has been going through a great many life cycles over the past however many years it's been. It's coming up to 100 years of radio, I guess. Um, Diving into the data from this article, anywho, um, the data is derived from YouGov profiles, which continuously collect data from the people that are registered on the platform, I guess. So let me list a few stats. We have 6 out of 10 profiles say they always listen to the same radio station. 5 of 10 prefer listening to local radio, and 3 of 10 notice ads on radio more than anywhere else. Um, Here was a good question. Which of the following radio stations have you listened to live in the past 30 days for at least 5 minutes? And this question was used to rank the top radios in Australia in terms of national representation. And the top 5 were ABC News Radio. And then they clumped local commercial radios as a whole in second place. Then it was Triple M, then Triple J, and then Nova. And that's some of the key facts that I got for you to chew there. But let's zoom out a little bit and project into the future. As an inside man, where do you see radio going in its next life cycle?
I think, yeah, radio, I guess it's still got that very unique touch point that it's the morning commute and the drive home. I think when people are really tuning in, I mean, that's where you got your flagship shows for breakfast and all that. So I think it's always going to have its place. Like, I mean, you're comparing it to TV now, I guess. Well, free to air TV anyway. I think that seems to be a real dying medium. I always thought it would be the other way around, but I guess people have the streaming services now. More people are into Netflix, Stan, and all these different kind of services where they can just pick the shows they want. And even some of those stations, I guess, have like the same thing like 9 now. They've all got, you can just pick the show when you want it. But I guess with radio, there's still just, in the mornings, it's listening to the morning breakfast hosts, getting your news from there. And that's like, in a live setting. I think it's going to have that sort of touch point, I guess, for people in the morning. I guess it's like everyone on the morning commute tuning into radio. And there was one of the points there, it's like you got people who are complete loyalists to shows. Like I know on the Christian O'Connell show where I work, it's got the fans like every day, like very loyalist fans. They'll be messaging, texting into the show, calling into the show. Like it's just hard to see them, changing the dial almost. They've just sort of picked their market and they're playing with it, I guess.
Yeah, so there's a personable touch that's sustaining radio at the moment, you think?
Absolutely. I think, and definitely, with using the Christian O'Connell show again as a example, it's they sort of build that show around their audience, I guess. It's like a lot of the segments are built on people calling in and telling them their stories, and it'll be whatever, wild story they're coming up with at the time. That's sort of what the segment will play around. They're like, oh, has anyone else, forgotten their nan or something, or left her in the car, and then they start getting people to call in about their own stories, and that sort of builds the show around it, I guess. So it's built by the people in many ways, I guess, through that sort of medium,
So how much is the music a draw card?
I mean, I think it's a starting point. Like, I guess with the music on Gold, it's all, it started off as the oldies, golden oldies. And it was a bit more, sort of around the 80s sort of segment, I guess. But I guess over time, like, their sort of segment would be what the, sort of a 30 to 50 kind of bracket. But then, as you can imagine, like, you have aging demographics. So, every 5 years, someone who was 25 is now hitting 30. And I guess those songs that were within that bracket have to adapt. So I'm finding, like, stuff is slowly... when I say more modern stuff, say early 2000s stuff, I hear all of a sudden like something like The Killers or something starts getting played on Gold. It's because they're starting to expand what their audience is, I guess, because they're bringing more people into that demographic. So
it's a dynamic demographic. Hey, Interesting. So, how vital do you think radio is for exposure and the musician's toolkit these days? And if so, if you think it's vital, like how vital?
I think it's, as I said, yeah, it's still an important touch point. I think, streaming, that's where everyone thinks they want to get their stuff out on. And it's a great start. It's, like the place where you point people, when you're meeting people, playing gigs, check out our stuff here. But I think radio is just, giving you a bigger reach or putting you into contact with people you may, never had the contact with before, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if there's like a very loyalist listening group to a particular show or station, if you can get on that, that's exposing your music to all those people that, tune into every day.
Yeah,
So I think
true.
it's just another tool, I guess, to help you get your music out there.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to know what tools to use because there's too many tools to just disperse your energy across all the options, right?
Mm.
So as a DIY musician, at least, you kind of got to focus your attention in certain channels. If you have a bigger team, you have a broader set of tools you can tap into. Um, what do you think in terms of ranking radio in that toolkit list? If you had to choose where to focus your attention, like if we were just talking about exposure, we're not talking about the creation, the recording
Mm.
process, or anything. Just exposure techniques.
It's, once again, I guess, going to come down to who your target audience is, really.
Of
Um,
course,
I
you're right.
think if, it's a real younger demographic, millennials and all that, like, or I should say, what, Gen Z, all these kind of types.
You should
This
for
is going to be
sure.
what more your sort of digital spaces and TikTok, and I think that's where a lot of them
Yeah,
get their music. But I think
influences and whatnot.
influences it, yeah, exactly. But I think, yeah, if you're looking at a bit of an older demographic, I mean, certainly 30 plus, I think. I mean, maybe radio starts ranking a bit higher. I mean, especially
Mm-hmm.
I think comparing
Mm.
it to TikTok and influencers, if you're thinking you're the 30 to 50 bracket, then radio is probably going to be way more important than, getting an influencer to do a dance to your song, for example.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right. I think radio probably increases in importance as your target audience demographic increases in age.
Absolutely, yeah.
Could be an equal correlation.
Hmm. Yeah, you probably see like a graph where it starts, building up
Yeah,
or building off. Yeah, like,
yeah. We love graphs,
oh,
of
don't we
course.
ever?
Nice. Cool. And what has been your experience working in radio at large? Have you enjoyed it? What's an inside knowledge? Some little fun facts that people wouldn't know about working on the other side of a radio network.
Yeah, it's so what am I, about 3 years into it now? And honestly, it's a great working environment. It's like a very good culture there, especially at ARM, which is both Kiss and Gold, and iHeart as well. So it's all the digital stations, podcasts as well.
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, just at that office, it's just a good energy. It's a good work crew, but it gets you in touch with like a lot of different suppliers, different contacts. So, I mean, a big part of my job is we pull all the events together that happen on air. And so they'll be working with a client, the primary client who wants to put on an event with the show, but then you're relaying with different suppliers who can, bring in entertainment, catering, even, musicians as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always sort of expanding and building your contacts, which is cool. Like, you just meet a lot of people through it. And it's just a great place to be. They've always putting on good incentives. There's always like leftover tickets to things, a lot of shows, concerts.
Yeah,
So
right.
that's definitely the good part of it. I reckon that
Mm.
a lot of
There's a
nice
lot of
work
partnerships going on, right? A lot of
Absolutely,
partnerships
yeah.
behind the scenes.
So we'll do a lot of campaigns, giveaways with companies like Frontier, Tech Dante, all these different
Yeah.
touring groups and concerts. So it's good. It's always just building contacts, getting new opportunities through it. Really, I think, yeah, great place to be.
Does it feel like you're working in the music industry, or does it feel like you're working in that more personable industry that we're sort of detailing at the start?
I think, yeah, there's a small part of it that it's still within the music industry in a sense, I guess radio, but I think my part, yeah, is 75% more, it's the event and experience side of things on radio. We have, of course, music directors who, curate what the music is going to be from a day-to-day basis. And I mean, I guess if you were in that role, absolutely, it's almost 100% being in the music industry, working in that field. Yeah, there's a little bit that plays it into my role, but I think, yeah, I'd be a bit more the sort of curating or, building what the events and giveaway side of things looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Nice. Thanks for sharing that, because it is these industry pockets are kind of mythical to the outsider. We don't get to see behind those walls. And radio is something that I've been watching with one eye for the past maybe 5 to 7 years. And I've kind of been waiting for it to die, if I'm being honest. Like, I've just been sort of, but it keeps holding on. It stays relevant, it seems.
I think, yeah, it's the same with me. Coming into it, I sort of thought it is a bit of a dying medium, given, current, we were talking about, millennials, Gen Z, all that, going to more like digital spaces, social media, TikTok, all this kind of stuff. And I was just thinking that, radio, what is its relevance still? But I guess working in industry itself, we can see like it still has its place. It's still got that unique touch point. It's still got a loyalist fan base, I guess. So it's still going strong. Still going strong from what I can see. Yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll pull a close there on our first section. We're going to head into the song of the week, which is from a band called Powell. The song is called Voice and Fire. You can stream it on your local Spotify, or maybe you get some radio airtime at some point. I don't know.
Let's fire it up.
Let's go have a listen, and then we'll check back in with some notes and thoughts and feelings on that song.
Beauty.
Voice and Fire. Voice and Fire from Powell. There you go. That's actually was released this year, I think.
Yeah, mid this year, so June.
Yeah, cool. First impressions, feeling wise, hit me.
It's got just real crisp production. I really liked how listening to it, you could just hear all the different instrumentation. It was just all very clear. You could pick out different parts and just had this very anthematic kind of building feel, I mean, prog metal, like, I do enjoy a little bit of that. It's, just awesome production, just great sound on it.
You're right. Everything was very well articulated, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Often in that genre, things can get a bit blurry because it starts to stack up and get a bit crossed over with frequencies and stuff. But no, it was very, very articulate. And you're right. I really liked the build throughout the song. It seemed to have a good balance of order, in that there was parts that recurred and felt familiar, but then the injections of novelty throughout the song kept me engaged to the end.
That's good. Yeah, you just had these, very powerful sort of passages, I guess, but then there'd just be these little bits of instrumentation sort of slinking in and just giving it that extra oomph, I could just hear another guitar coming in, doing a little arpeggio kind of riff or something like that. It It was
Yeah,
great. There was just like everything coming in, just sort of lifting the song as it progressed.
totally. Yeah, you guys can check out some more Pay On. They released, that was part of their EP, debut EP as well. Friend of mine, Jacob, who fronts that band, and I guess they'll be playing some shows in Melbourne and around. So you can go follow them on your local Instagrams and whatnot as well. Cool. Just another heads up on that. Jacob's someone that I recently uh, did some work with GYMjot um, song feedback forms. So this is something that you can access today, all you listeners out there. You can send me a song, maybe it'll show up on this podcast, and I'll send you back a document worth of detailed feedback from one listen analysis, and that's all for free. Or you can get that deep dive 12 listen analysis um, with a bit of a paywall on that. But if you want the finer details, if maybe you're working on a new song, you're a bit stuck, you don't know where to go, my perspective could be of value to you. What I did more with Jacob is the Gym Job artist development process, and this is something we prize ourselves on. Something that I've developed over the last 7 years. It's something to get your goals aligned with your reality. Look into your values, look into your motivational forces, and try to stack all that in your favor. Um, to make your career in the music industry that much more sustainable, that much more viable. If that's something you're interested in, head on over to gymjot.com.au, check out our services in more detail, give us a buzz. I'm always keen to hear from you.
And
And
UCCs, folks, UCCs.
um, talking about artist development more broadly, you've spent some time in A&R for Sony.
Mm-hmm.
What were the perspectives on artist development when you were with Sony, and how has it influenced your general perspectives on artist development?
Yeah, it's coming into A&R. It was God, great time to be doing it. I mean, 2020 as we went into a lockdown, so
Yeah.
that was fantastic timing.
Yeah.
So it went from going to gigs and checking out artists to a lot of it. Yeah, hey, I found this band online. They seem pretty cool. Let's give them a shout. But I think with Sony, it still gave me a good insight. There's like a whole team sort of just like working around artists and working out what platforms to put them on, what opportunities to put them forward to. We were having weekly meetings with the A&R team, and they would just be giving updates on the artists they're looking after. And I mean, a lot of them can be even just, it's not even artists they've signed yet, it's just someone they've just been sort of mentoring in the background, just sort of trying to get them up, trying to get them moving with some recordings, some gig opportunities, because obviously they've seen something really great in them that could, be awesome to bring over to the label. So it's just sort of chipping away at it, I guess. Because some of them have been relaying with the same artist for most of that year or something like that, and then they're just waiting for the right opportunity to really present them as a package and bring them into the fold. So there's just sort of a whole brain trust, I guess, of a team, just sort of working around what would work best, and people exchanging ideas like, hey, they would be good for this gig, this festival. They would be good linking them up with this artist we already have on the label, and trying to get a collab going there, because I could just hear them working together in that sound space.
Yeah. Was there a general direction that Sony was trying to take artists once they were on the label? So this is after the fact, after the signing. How were they trying to empower these artists?
I mean, it was, from the artist perspective, it's trying to get them to realize their full potential, but I guess from the label perspective, it's I guess the numbers at the same time. It's like, how can we get this artist to this level where they're getting this amount of followers on social, they're bringing this many people into concerts, they're getting this amount of streams on the platforms. I mean, like we could pretend to be like, oh, it's all about the artists and, empowering them. But I mean, at the end, they're still a business, right? So it's it's
Yeah.
still a matter of numbers, still a matter of goalposts to reach in
Yeah.
terms of getting them to, yeah, a position, I guess, among the other artists in their label where they can slot in and bring in that audience.
Mm-hmm. How is it? How did that role at Sony influence your own development as an artist, as a musician?
I think it was just sort of seeing it from the inside. Well, I mean, before that, on the outside, I think you always get stuck in the whole idea that, it's just a matter of getting that, one good release, and then you're going to get signed up, and then, you're going to be traveling the world in the jet and the limousine, all that kind of stuff. But, obviously not quite the reality of things. It's, I think you can't really rely on the idea of being signed to a big label to start off. I don't think that's going to benefit a emerging or independent artist. I mean, hey, sometimes it does, but I think there's so many great grassroots and smaller level labels that they'd be all about championing up and coming talent, because for them it's, if this artist starts doing really well and they're there from the get go, it's only going to bring the label up as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think with big labels like Sony, Universal, I mean, look, they'll take a punt on artists, absolutely, up and coming if they see something special in it. But I was also there seeing how we had a whole emerging upcoming list, but at the end of the year they'd be looking at which ones do we cut off. It's sort of like we gave this a crack, but we're just not seeing the number growth. We're not seeing them picking up where we want them in these markets. So it's time to say goodbye.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. It can feel quite brutal when you put.
It's a bit cutthroat, I think. You kind of, you're sort of given that position, but you gotta perform. Obviously, you gotta start hitting those markers, or that you're not gonna be able to stay around for much long.
Yeah. What could an artist do to from the time you were in the A&R team in Melbourne, right?
Mm-hmm.
What could have an artist done that would be of interest to you in your A&R team?
I mean, it sounds, what's the word? Like cliche, but it's like, what's your unique selling point, I guess? What separates you from, the other 30-something rock bands playing in Melbourne, So I guess, definitely early on in that role, especially, when I was working from home, I was just sifting through music on, Bandcamp and Unearthed and all these different platforms. I'd just be playing through. So it's almost like your, how do I put it? It's like your elevator interview or your pitch, It's like...
Yeah, elevator pitch, yeah.
I almost a lot of the time I was listening to the first 30 seconds. I'm like, all right, is this, is something capturing me here? Something making me want to stay and listen on? Or was it, okay, this sounds like, any other sort of alt rock song, hard rock song, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It was just looking for something that just got me in that first 30 seconds. And I mean, that also comes back to trying to make a song viable for radio and such. It's you got to kind of get to the crux of your song very early on. It's awesome to have, if you want to sort of build your artistry and have these amazing intros and concept albums, which I think is awesome. But I think if you're looking for that label grab who wants to, find a spot for you in radio and Spotify and finding that platform for you, you just got to have that pull from the first 30 seconds of the song, I feel.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that can feel quite restricting in terms of your creative liberty.
Absolutely. I think that's why, if you have just got your heart set on being an artist, being an independent artist, and it's 100% your own vision, then I think you got to do it from the an independent method of things. But if you're looking to sort of get that big break or find that big audience, find that festival spot, I think then you're probably looking at some label help, but they're going to have a little more say in the direction of things.
Yeah, well, would you say that labels are looking for a little bit of proof in the pudding before getting involved?
Absolutely, yeah. It's
were there metrics of proof?
Definitely, it was. You'd actually be. We had a thing called what was it? It was whitelist, and it's sort of it showed the metrics, I guess, of an artist, their social media platforms, their Spotify, their streaming platforms, and it would show sort of the growth patterns. I guess it would sort of look at where were they sitting last month compared to the next month,
Right.
and if they could see, exponential growth or upward trajectory, it's, to them, it's like, all right, maybe this is someone we need to jump on now because we're seeing signs of growth. They're only getting bigger from here. The time to act is now. But if you had someone that sort of put out something, but it's just sort of sitting here, it's like, this is probably a longer term project. Maybe we can go in there and sort of mentor and try to, shape things a bit for them. But, they wouldn't be scrambling to get on it because I guess it's all competition with the other labels. They're trying to find the next thing that's just going to shoot it up.
True. You got to have a close eye on the market.
Absolutely.
Well, stepping away from that business lens, as an artist yourself and someone who's been engaged with multiple projects, what would be the key piece of artist development advice or an experience that you had, or a realization that you've had for your artistry, for your artistic empowerment, less so from the business lens, just something that's made you feel like a better creative?
I think the biggest one is, and it's probably thrown around before, but collaboration is key, as they say. I think, hey, sure, there's some artists that they've got their own vision, they know what they want to do, but I think in terms of development and building your sound or, experimenting with different sounds, you're going to do it much better in a collaborative space, reaching out to new musicians, hosting those jam sessions. It's only going to benefit you, I think. Like, just getting in touch, going to gigs, meeting people, getting those contacts, having a little jam. It's all just going to add to your own musical sphere of things, I think.
Totally. You have any tips for musicians that struggle to find collaborative courage? Because it can be quite a daunting thing to, say, go to a gig and start running in and talking to a bunch of musicians, or whatever that point of connection looks like. It's not always as easy as it sounds.
Yeah, it is a bit tricky in that sense. I think I was lucky going to, a school with a good music program because that's where it started all for me. I already had peers who were really into music, connecting with them. They were showing me their stuff, likewise showing myself showing their stuff, me showing their stuff. Can't even talk now.
You got it. You got it.
Showing my stuff to them. Sorry, I kept saying, why am I showing their stuff anyway? And just connecting through that and then checking out gigs. But I guess if you're coming off someone who's starting from scratch, it can be pretty difficult. I guess there's a lot of great forums and chats online. Bandcamp, I think, is another good one. I think there was another one called Submit Hub, where you can put your music up there and reach new people that way. I think that's a good starting point to maybe get the contacts or, try and reach out to people, get a bit of feedback on your own stuff, I guess. And
totally.
Hopefully that empowers you a little bit more to put it out into wider spaces. Yeah. Start heading out to some gigs, start swapping contacts, CDs, QR codes, whatever it is. I think that's the starting point.
I would even say you can think broader than that. You can almost just think about interests at large. So if you're interested in volleyball, if you go and join a social volleyball team, at some point you might find yourself running into a musician. It's not that uncommon. The musicians pop up in all sorts of spheres. Obviously, it's more reliable to go to like a gig setting or like a creativity workshop or a music school, for that example, where you're just sort of put in the deep end with musicians. But sometimes, in terms of having that connective courage and getting that collaborative opportunity, it can be nice just sort of stumbling into those opportunities as opposed to like going to a certain place when you know there's going to be opportunities to connect with musicians. And then it's like this pressurized thing. But maybe your volleyball team, you're just like, oh yeah, I play guitar. And he's like, oh yeah, I play guitar too. You guys already were connected before that. And then you're like, oh my God, we should jam sometime. You know?
But you never know where it'll pop up sometimes. That actually makes me think of how the Dead Amigos started. It was drummer Sean. He was working in a kebab store at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And would be frontman playing in another band, stumbled in drunk one night, causing a ruckus. They somehow got onto the notion that they were both musicians. They're like, hey, you play guitar, I play drums. It's like, oh, let's have a jam sometime. One of those classic drunk encounters, I guess.
Yeah.
But he actually followed through. They had a jam probably not the next day, but a couple of days later. And you fast forward now, we've been a band for nearly 8 years, just off the start of that chance encounter, really. Yeah.
There's always some good band genesis stories out there. Peculiar things. On that note, though, I would also say don't take it personal if a musician says to you one night that they're keen to have a jam and it doesn't happen. Because it's just gonna happen, Don't take it too harsh,
I think we've all been there where we've been out on a night out, a couple of drinks in, you just get a little too excited by the idea. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna come together, we're gonna write an EP, we're gonna do all this, but then the next day, like, yeah, maybe I got a little ahead of myself in that instance, but you never know. Sometimes that person will call and want to have a jam. It's just, it's always up in the air.
Yeah, put yourself out there.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, that's about it for us, folks. Thanks so much for coming on, Lockie. Appreciate it. Do you want to send people anywhere?
Send people anywhere. You can check out Dead Amigos on our usual social sites, Instagram, Facebook, same with the Calibans. We have a gig coming up December 13th at Pockets, Moorabbin. That will actually be with both bands. So if you're around, come on down.
Great. Awesome. Thanks again to Payon for letting us feature their song this episode. And go over to GYMjot, check out what we're doing over there. Check out the Dead Amigos and the Calibans. Until next time, team, take care. Ciao.